This is the Sick'em Podcast, powered by Rogue Media Network. The Sick'em Podcast is a production of Baylor Athletics. Now, here are your hosts, Katie Smith and the voice of the Bears, John Morris.
Hi, everybody, and welcome into this week's Sick'em Podcast, powered by Rogue Media Network, a production of Baylor Athletics. Hey, we're glad you're with us again this week. John Morris, Katie Smith, and we get to sit down, Katie, with one of Baylor's all-time greats in women's basketball. Just one of Baylor's all-time greats, period.
Just in general.
Yes. And now back working with Baylor women's basketball, Sophia Young-Malcolm is with us today.
Yes, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
I was surprised when I looked at the list. We hadn't had you on the Sick'em Podcast before.
Oh.
Okay.
Your name came up, and I thought, no, surely we've talked to Sophia, maybe when she came back to work, here, and sorry to say, we're just now having you on, but no better time like today.
No better time than the present.
Great.
No better time than the present.
Great. And we catch you in the middle of basketball season. You're back. I think people know back as assistant AD for player development for Baylor women's basketball. And not easy to find time in the middle of basketball season, but thanks for making time for us.
Yeah, no problem. It's a joy to be here.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the day-to-day in the role of assistant AD for player development. So you're a member of the coaching staff essentially, but what's kind of the intricacies of that role?
Yeah, and this role is it's so unique, and there isn't any set standards for it. If you go to different places, you'll see different people doing different things, particularly for what that team needs. And I think for me, day to day is just about being there for the girls and trying to get them with community service and get them out in the community, get them involved with different mentors, trying to set them up for life when all this is done, because it does come to an end sometimes. So it's just about getting them ready in that mindset, at least a thought that, hey, let's make sure we build relationships. Let's make sure we connect with people. And I believe that Baylor has everything that they will need for success in every aspect of their life. Yeah. So let's make sure that we connect or build some sort of relationship with somebody here that can help you in the future. And basketball wise, I don't have the opportunity to be on the court to work with them on basketball skills. So it's about, hey, encouragement whenever they're doing something. And if I can input any type of insight where I see that especially the post players, that they're not doing right or they can do better, I can say, hey, maybe do this next time. Or, somebody's a little bit discouraged. Yeah. I can say, hey, this is it's going to get better. These are the things that we can work on, to do differently. And so just different aspects like that. And for me, a unique part of my role here at Baylor is that I get to be like the spiritual advisor for the team. Doing devotionals and kind of like a chaplain for our team. So that's why I said this role is unique to every different team, and not everybody's going to have the same type of situations in their team. So far it's been fantastic, and I enjoy it. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah,
you're basically the assistant AD for preparing champions for life.
I like that title.
How about that?
Much, yes.
You have a different title, but that's one of the mantras that Mac likes to say here. And gosh, you have the ability, you're in the position to have a huge impact on these young ladies' lives.
Yeah, and that's the hope, right? That's the hope. You hope that something that you say will stick. Because I always try to put myself back to where they are, and I would think, okay, when I was 21 years old, did I want to hear anything like this? How would I respond if somebody comes in and they're constantly telling me, hey, this is going to end, and would I just be like, please stop talking, or would I really take it? So I try to put myself back in their shoe to just kind of see how I can formulate the words in a better way that it can hopefully make an impact. So sometimes you see glimpses of when they put into action something that you say, and you're like, oh, they are listening, right? So there's some high moments in that aspect, and then there's some low moments where you're like, do you hear anything that I say at all? I've been trying to teach you this for forever now. Yeah. So it's been good. It's been really good.
That's awesome. I feel like it's just so valuable to have someone that's been in their shoes, right? You played at Baylor, you experienced all these things, you played professionally for so long, which so many of our student athletes have aspirations to do. But are you able to kind of educate them on how far women's basketball has come, or how far Baylor women's basketball has come since the differences since you played?
You know, there's an interesting aspect when you're teaching the current generation about the past.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you don't really have a true appreciation for what came before you,
Sure.
because you're just like, okay, well, why shouldn't I have this, or
Yeah.
why shouldn't I have that? And I'm like, hey, we did not have our own locker room like this, or we did not have a practice facility
Right.
to where you can come in at any time
Yeah.
and shoot, or any time to get better. And I always think to myself, like, man, what if I had this? Would I have gotten so much better, right,
Yeah.
as an athlete? Or if I had me, if I had somebody like me,
Yeah.
like where would
Yeah.
I have been? You know, the decisions that I would have made, and I've made some pretty silly decisions, like, you know, between those college
Sure.
years. But would I have done differently?
Yeah.
And so you try to educate them in some way, but it's a little bit challenging to get them to understand the past.
Yeah.
But so it's just a matter of how do you be present in their moment and see their problems, and use their problems in a way that you can guide them towards a better, you know, a better decision or a better life, you know. So that they don't keep repeating the same mistakes that I made, right? As when I was here, or somebody made 5 years ago, because Baylor have had so much success, you know, especially in the women's basketball department. So it's hard to when a player comes in and they just automatically think they're going to be successful, right? Because of the success. And so I guess that's one of the cons of being successful, right? Everybody comes in and you just automatically think you're going to be successful. But it's like, hey, you really had to work. We had to work extremely hard to get to this point.
Yeah.
And so we want you to continue to do that and not just kind of live off of the past, but knowing that there's a process to this. And Baylor's a fantastic place where you can get your name written in the books for doing some pretty spectacular things, but you can't do that without working hard.
Yeah,
You know, you
that's
can't just show up and be good, right?
Sure.
And we have all the facilities, everything that we need to be the best. And I keep stressing that. I'm like, when you come here, you can absolutely be the best that you can want, that you want to be, you know. And I don't know if they hear me at that point. Right? Those are one of those things. I'm like, you can absolutely be the best that you want to be. And can you really focus in and put all the distractions aside and really, you know, get in the gym and get better? You know, just think about a shot that you missed. Why did I miss that shot? You know, how can I do it differently? And also another aspect in my role particularly, it's make friends with your professors.
Yeah.
Every time you go into class, have a conversation with your professors, you know, just talk to them about their lives and what they're doing. Don't show up in the class late and, you know, and expect them to give you an A after, when you never participated or you never even showed that you cared enough about them or what they're teaching. You know, I'm like, make friends with your classmates, right? Make so many different things. I'm like, hey, these people are going to be people that you can call back in the next 10 years when you're coming back to homecoming and say, hey, I'm going to homecoming. Do you want to go? So those aspects. Make friends, not with your teammates.
They're already your friends.
Make friends with somebody else on campus. So those kind of things we try to stress.
That's such great real-world advice that you have. I'm curious, some of the newcomers this year, like Dariana, you know, like Bella, they come in, and do they know you and know your background and your success, or is that something that they get here and then all of a sudden, oh, she played on a national
she actually
championship
knows.
team.
Because that carries weight, right?
Exactly.
She says it, but she did it. You know?
Right. What's that like for the newcomers when they come in here?
I think they heard, but I don't necessarily know if they knew it, like to where it's like an internal understanding. Like this, like I was here and we worked really hard, and you know, sometimes the things that I've done even shocks me. Because I look back, I'm like, wait, I was that? Oh my gosh!
That's
so
great.
so if they don't know, then you know I can't really take them for that because I don't even remember myself. But I think it's when they got here, as we've gone along, they kind of started seeing. And I don't try to interject myself into their lives, to say you better listen to me or else.
Sure.
I just
that's not your personality.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely
Right.
not. So it's just about, hey, D, let me give you a hug real quick. This is you. I can see that you're struggling.
Yeah.
Like, hey, this is what I think that can be helpful
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
So
That is
just
such
those
a huge
little
role.
moments.
It
Yeah.
is. It
Yeah.
really is. I love these player development roles that we've kind of seen come on to different sport programs in the past. I mean, probably 3 to 5 years is
Yeah.
kind of when
Very
rumblings,
recent.
but
Yeah.
even
Very
more
recent.
recent for
Right.
most sports. But I love it because you're kind of that person that's they trust because you're part of the program, but it's that added, you're kind of there to walk through life with them. And I loved what you mentioned about how at Baylor you're able to kind of be that spiritual leader for them. What does those relationships for you kind of look like?
Yeah. And when it comes to like spiritual development, it's such a sensitive topic, and it's such an
Yeah.
interesting, role or dynamic of how to navigate that in terms of where people are spiritually. Do you force Jesus on them too
Yeah.
much? You say, accept Jesus or go to hell, right? Do you
Right.
say that, or you just walk them through life
Yeah.
and live your life in a way that they will know that you love
Yeah.
Jesus,
Yeah, I
right?
love
Because
that.
I think those kind of examples can be so much more instrumental
Yeah.
in your growth and your development, more so than somebody's like, hey, you got to read the Bible or
Yeah.
else,
Yeah.
So those kind of living, with me, I try to do both. We
Yeah.
do a devotional once a week, and it's about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and we don't really force it on them. They have it. They can read it at any time. And so we get in there. We ask practical questions like from the devotional. How does this affect you in your life right now? One of the devotionals we studied a few weeks ago was about, what you're going through now in 10 years, you're not going to even think about it.
Yeah.
So I had to put
Yeah.
that into perspective for them. Like, hey, I know you feel stressed right now. Like basketball is everything. And I can
Yeah.
tell you from life, speaking that I was here, so many years ago.
Yeah.
And then now I'm here that, hey, this is not the end of life. It's not the end all be all, that there
Yeah.
is going to come a time when you're going to look back and not even remember this moment,
Isn't that
right?
crazy?
Yeah.
But what wisdom to have that in their
Right,
locker room,
right.
telling
Exactly.
them, hey, I
Yeah.
know it feels this way.
Right.
But-
But life is not going to be over. Like, you can still make it.
And another plus being at Baylor that you can
Absolutely.
be in that role and talk about those things and tell about your faith, talk about your faith really unabashedly, do that. Again, that's one of the great things about Baylor and Baylor athletics.
Absolutely. And that's why when I first came to Baylor, there were so many things that I loved about this school and still love. My kids are going to go here, regardless of what my husband
Love
says.
it.
Love it. We'll talk to
no
him.
LSU, right?
Yeah.
No. Visit LSU, but
That's
come to
visit
school
LSU.
at Baylor.
Yeah.
Love
no,
you,
but
Malcolm.
that's one of the reasons why I came here is the spiritual aspect that Baylor has. I mean, I grew up in the church and been, have often surrendered my life to Christ since I was, a teenager. So
Yeah.
choosing a school where you can say Jesus out loud was a huge deal for me. So
Yeah.
Baylor
That's
was it.
awesome.
What? Let's reminisce a little bit about
Ooh,
that
fun.
recruiting process for you. What stood out? I mean, you talked about that being a factor in you coming to Baylor, but what else do you remember about the time when you were being recruited and coming to Baylor?
When I came on campus, well, first of all, I wasn't recruited by a lot of schools. So let's just get that out. Baylor was the
Opportunity
only,
missed.
Yeah,
I
right.
know. I bet they're feeling silly.
Baylor was the only quote unquote big school that recruited me.
Yeah.
It was 2 other schools in Louisiana, small D1s, and I remember going to their visit. I'm thinking like, there's no way I can be in South Louisiana, right? And so when I came on campus, I felt like this is something I was praying about, and I felt like the Holy Spirit was like, this is it. Before I even met the players, before I even, got into the locker room or everything, I just felt like this is the place that I was supposed to be. And I thought, Danielle Crockham was here. She was phenomenal in hosting. And then I remember watching, I think they went to the Sweet 16 with Sheila Lambert and just feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm about to play here. This is it. This is the place where I wanted to be. And Coach Mulkey did a fantastic job of, recruiting and making me feel welcome. And I feel like being here at Baylor, it was by far the best 4 years of my life on a consistent basis, where you didn't have any problems, any stress about kids, or worry about anything. You were a young person and just feeling the freedom to play the game that you love and to enjoy the people that you're around. So I came in with about 4 or 5 people, and they were phenomenal.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like you mentioned earlier you try to message to these girls that, oh, this feels big right now, but down the road it's not that big of a deal. Are there certain memories that do come to mind, though, that you're like, oh, that when I think back to this game, or I think back to, what my stats were here, are there certain games you remember, and maybe what's one?
One in particular, it was the loss against.
You always remember those,
Yeah.
I guess.
Right. Was the loss against Tennessee in the Sweet 16 in Oklahoma, and it was funny because we just came from Oklahoma, and I just remember walking down that tunnel, and like every time I go to OU, I'm like, this was the place.
Flashback.
You're back.
Oh God.
Absolutely. That was it was a really hot fought game, and it came down to 2 free throws. It came down to a foul and 2 free throws that won the game, which should not have been called, in my opinion. Obviously,
Sure.
In my unbiased opinion.
Yes, absolutely.
For what it's worth, I agree with you.
There you go.
Thank you.
I don't remember it, but me too.
Yeah.
I agree.
No,
Trust
it
us.
was it was one of those, and I thought from that game you can tell that we came together so much as a team. And that was what propelled us into that following year when we won the championship.
Yeah,
so it was literally that loss that got us to the point where we were like, hey, let's all stay back this summer and work as hard as we can. And we did just that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Here's what I remember about that. It was a Sunday night game.
Wow.
We were doing Inside Baylor Sports at the time, TV show that aired on Sunday nights.
Okay.
We knew this game would be there, so we were set up for a live show, had all these great plans, game ends, we get Sophia, or somebody out there live with us, and the game ends, and it is like you just ran face first into a brick wall because all of a sudden this season, which was a great season for you, it was, but all of a sudden it's bam, it's over just like that.
Yeah.
We still had to do the show.
Shoot. The show must go
outside the
on.
arena.
Man.
But that was tough. Is that where no, it wasn't. You had the T-shirts. Didn't they have .2 on it after
Probably.
that?
Yeah,
you remember that?
yeah, of course.
0.2 of a
It
second.
was 2 cents of a second.
Oh.
if I recall it,
Was the difference really?
Okay.
And that, so that was a real rallying cry, wasn't it?
It was, and then that's, like I said, that's what propelled us for the next year, because we knew we were so much better. Like, we knew we were going to win that game.
Yeah.
And we knew that we had so much more to give. And so that was a deciding factor, I think, for our team, and in terms of, okay, where do we want to go from here? Who do we want to be as players and as a team? And it didn't hurt that we had a feisty coach, who just holds everything on her back, right?
Yeah.
And just pushed us to do, like, hey, you remember point 2, right?
Yes.
So
Oh,
that was,
man.
that was a rallying cry for sure. And then the next season, I think we just kind of went uphill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sophia McYoung-Malcolm, our guest on the Sikkim podcast, powered by the Rogue Media Network. I've had the privilege of calling games, telling stories about Baylor athletics for a long time. Storytelling is an art, and there's a network in town doing just that. Rogue Media Network has produced over 80 original podcasts and shows, ranging from comedy, true crime, business, and sports. If there's a story to tell, Rogue Media Network is telling it. You can find this podcast and all the other great Rogue Media Network shows on Spotify, on Apple, on YouTube, or anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Podcasts, love it. Sophia, so we talked about how...
Wait, was that Sophia, or was that just Sophia?
Sophia. I like that. Good transition, Sophia.
Good job, Kate.
So we talked to Sophia. So we talked about your recruiting process as a student athlete, but tell us a little bit about how you got recruited to this position that you're in now. What did that conversation look like? How did you decide to leave coaching AAU, right? And you've done that for a couple years and had started your own club and everything. How did you switch over and move your family to Waco?
Well, life is so interesting,
Isn't it? That's great.
2020 was such a pivotal point for the world. I was coaching in high school, and towards COVID, I stayed home with my kids, and I had the best time, with them.
Yeah.
And so with doing that, just thinking, okay, do I want to go back to high school or do I want to go into college? And I knew the 16 to about 23 age group I really, really love. Absolutely love. I love college age kids. Everybody kind of have that those set of group of people that you just like. I like to be with like the elderly, or like kids. And college age is like where I feel the most like I get fueled by them. And so just kind of thinking about it, praying about it, and telling my husband, hey, I want to go into college coaching. And at that in 21, I think the Final Four was in San Antonio, and so just started that process in 2020. And in 2021, when it came, I started networking, and we just bought a house. It was to us, it was our forever home. Our kids were going to go to school right down the street.
Isn't that funny?
Let's just say life is interesting, right? So I know that the UTSA job was coming available, and I was like, okay, perfect. I'm here in San
we don't
Antonio.
have to move. We have a house.
We have everything. Like, I had my life all planned out to be in San Antonio for the next 20 years, right?
Wow.
And so the AD hired, I think, Karen Aston.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, from Baylor,
Right.
and just kind of had a conversation with her, letting her know what I wanted to do, and I never heard back from her. And then that so then the Coach Mulkey stuff happened, and some of my friends were like, "Hey, you should try to go to Baylor," and I was like, "No, Waco, no way." I'm not thinking about going back to Waco, and so that was for a few weeks, almost like 5 or 6 weeks, and from the process of Karen Aston to Baylor, which happened within like 2 weeks after Coach Mulkey left, and a former coach of mine called me, and he was like, "You need to go back to Baylor."
Wow.
And God knows who I listen to, and He knows who I don't listen to. So He knows exactly who to tell me to, who He should use to tell me to do that. And so with that, I reached out to Mac and said, hey, this is what I'm thinking. This is a role that I would like.
Perfect.
Because at that point, I didn't know if I wanted to coach.
Yeah.
Because I had 2 young kids, and I'm
Sure.
like, I know the dynamics of traveling and recruiting is going to be a lot, and so I was like, hey, I want to be a spiritual advisor, I want to be a mentor, I want to be, somebody that can help them with their life.
Yeah.
And so after he hired Nikki, he was like, all right. He mentioned, I guess, my name to Nikki, and she called me. We had a fantastic conversation.
Did y'all know each other before?
We did not know. She knew of me because I think
Because who doesn't? I mean, honestly. She'd never say that, but we can.
But I think Becky Hammond played for her husband
Oh,
in
yeah.
Colorado.
Yeah.
And
There's
so
a
she
connection.
so she would come to our games in San Antonio.
Wow.
So she knew. And then I think as I was coming out of the league, she was coming into the league.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
she saw me play like my last season and stuff like that. So she knew who I was. So we had a fantastic conversation, and then that was like on a Friday, and she was like, well, if you want to be a part of the program, I would love to have you. And so on Monday, so that from a Friday to a Monday.
Wow.
Just
and
like
then,
that.
So my husband and I told him what's going on, and he was like, all right, let's go.
Yeah.
Waco.
Wow.
Let's go to Waco.
It's a great story.
So,
Such a great fit, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And credit Coach Collins. She saw that.
She saw that.
And brought you
She
here.
saw that and brought me here. Yeah.
Tell everybody, you're talking about your family.
Yeah.
Tell everybody about your family.
Yeah. So my husband and 2 babies. My daughter Sky is 5, and she cannot wait to be 6.
Oh, man. Because once you're 6, you have arrived.
Yes, life is a whole different story.
Cute.
And so, and my son is 4, so he's also going to be 5. They're both born in February.
Fun.
So they're literally 1 year apart.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we're done.
Coming
Wow.
up.
I am thinking about that personally, and you are Superwoman. That would be so hard.
Oh my gosh. Yes. So they're amazing. The transition here to Waco have been phenomenal for them. My husband is really involved with Startup Waco.
Oh, great.
And so he works out of there, and my kids finding their way with friends and their school. So it's been a fantastic move. Didn't think that I was gonna come back to Waco, like I mentioned, but God has done some amazing things, opened up some incredible doors, and just feeling the family and the love and the connection back here. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know I needed this, but it's been pretty
Baylor
cool.
is home.
It is home.
Yeah.
I love that. I feel like that is a big part of so many people's story that moved to Waco, whether it's for a coaching job and it's this, when you see it on paper, you think, oh, gosh, that's a great idea. No, thank you. And then you meet the people, and exactly like you said, it feels like home. So is your extended family in San Antonio still, or where's kind of grandparents and things like that?
Well, my husband's mom lives in San Antonio.
Okay.
So she comes up every now and then my sister is in San Antonio as well.
Okay.
But, guys, I'm from the Caribbean, so my mom and brothers and sisters are still back in the Caribbean, which I don't think that they like Texas as much as
a little different.
They're before the Caribbean weather, so they don't
Caribbean,
really
like Waco, not really apples to apples there.
How often do you get back there?
I went back in 2019, right before COVID, and I was thinking, okay, well, we're going to take our kids every year to the Caribbean, and then COVID happened. So we are going to go back maybe next summer or 25 probably.
That is great. Yeah. Well, another part of your job, a kind of a sidelight to what you do with women's basketball, you're doing radio with us on the Baylor women's broadcast. And so, Katie, here's my thought. When Sophia was here and we need a color analyst, I thought, that would be a dream team to pair her with Derek Smith.
Wouldn't that
Would Sophia be interested in that? Because she's got a full-time job, working with basketball. Yeah. Could she make time to do it? But I asked you, and you said originally you were interested, and we talked more about it, and you're just perfect for that role.
Yeah, incredible.
You really are.
You guys are so good at encouraging.
No, you're perfect.
We're really
for
not that good at that. We're being honest.
It's been good. It's been a good.
You enjoy it?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. And Derek is so cool.
Derek is great.
He's so awesome to work with.
He is great.
Yeah. I feel like he has trained me very well.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of it. I mean, the pairing, and if and Derek is great to work with, and you are great to work with him.
Yeah.
So it's been a really good product. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
No problem.
Don't get tired of doing radio, okay? Please.
So what do game days look like for you, switching between those two roles? Like, when do you switch from Sophia Young, Malcolm Young, I always do that, from assistant AD of player development to radio superstar?
Well, on the road is different from at home. At home, I try not to get involved too much in terms of, because, it's a home game. You're more comfortable here for the players. So I go before the game and listen to, the talk. And if I see somebody struggling at, halftime, I can give an input.
Yeah.
But most of the time I'm on the radio for that point. On the road, it's more like, all right, who can I encourage? Who needs a little bit more? It's going to be a little bit more nerve-wracking being on the road. How can we get them to calm down a little bit and try to do that, and then get on the pregame show. And then the game, and also at halftime to see what can happen.
She breaks away at halftime.
Breaks away at halftime.
Gets that inside info, and then brings that back.
Absolutely.
That works out really well.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy the role that you're in right now enough that you don't miss coaching, or is there an itch at all to coach again?
There is an itch to coach again, for sure. Like I said, coming back, I didn't think that. I came here with, okay, let me just do this for now and to see if I want to coach, right? Because I know when Coach Nikki asked, do you want to coach? And I was like, well, maybe not. We'll see how it goes. But just being around the game and being around the players, and I feel like I there's so much in my mind that I want to be able to teach and I want to be able to give to them, and I feel like if I don't do it, then I'm gonna regret not trying. So I definitely want to go in and try the coaching aspect. But and I've learned so much from this role.
Yeah.
That I feel like I'll be a much more equipped coach So I think that, again, God works in mysterious ways, right? I didn't know that I needed this role, but I feel like this role has taught me how to coach.
Yeah.
And I wasn't coaching, but it has taught me like the relational aspect of coaching and what the players need. How do I get them to bring the most out of them?
Yeah.
This is what this role has taught me.
Yeah.
So yes, I intend on coaching, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, that's huge. I feel like it's such when you can't do something, you're not allowed to talk X's and O's as much. It's, wow, I miss it.
Right.
But you're learning so much about a new coaching style. What's kind of maybe one thing you've really learned from Nikki's coaching style, because her not being your coach?
Yeah. Well, Coach Nikki, obviously, if you compare them for her and Kim, they're very different in terms of the way that they are. They play and on the sideline and the demands that they make from their team. And I think Coach Nikki gives you a lot of freedom. She is that player's coach, and she wants them to kind of, think the game more so than telling them what to do. And so that's very different, But that's the WNBA type of mindset, especially as professionals. You don't really need to be taught what to do. You just need to play. And so she brings that type of mindset into the college that because I didn't experience that as a college athlete. That's different. Yeah. And I think that gives you so much freedom as players, which I truly love.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, we love visiting with you, and we love that you're back at Baylor. You're a huge part of the success of not just Baylor women's basketball, but Baylor athletics in general. So thanks for visiting with us today. We really appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you.
Happy to have been here.
Thank you very much. All-American, All-Star, Sophia Young-Malcolm.
I love it. Have you been looking for a new podcast to listen to? Are you interested in true crime, funny one-star reviews, or inspiring stories? What about the history of Waco or the famous people who have lived and worked here? All these and more are produced by Rogue Media Network. There are over 80 different shows, including this one, with more coming all the time. If there is a story to tell, Rogue Media Network is telling it. Watch on YouTube or listen now wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, very fun to visit with Sophia, and when I say one of Baylor's all-time greats, I don't say that lightly.
I mean, truly all over the record books, everywhere.
Yeah.
I loved hearing the story about kind of how she got back to Baylor and that conversation with Mac, but my favorite thing is that she's like, I won't be surprised when the girls don't know my stats or records, because sometimes I'm surprised by it. I'm like, what? It's amazing.
That's really cool. So good luck, continued success to Baylor women's basketball and Sophia. The season continues. And that's our Sick'em podcast for this week. It is powered by Rogue Media Network. For Katie Smith, for another legend, another one of Baylor's all-time greats. For Sophia Young-Malcolm, I'm John Morris. Thanks for tuning in to the Sick'em podcast powered by Rogue Media Network.
You've been listening to the Sick'em podcast powered by Rogue Media Network. The Sick'em podcast is a production of Baylor Athletics.